Today's event and the MPW community encourages us to embrace responsibility and opportunity as we realize our power. Our next guests embody this with their professional and personal journeys. Lucy Guo is Chief Executive Officer of Passes. She became a coder at the ripe age of 7. In middle school, Lucy created one of the first Twitter bots, but it wasn't until she was at Y Combinator that she had the idea of merging machine learning with people. The result was Scale AI, a multi-billion-dollar company today. Daniella Pierson is founder and CEO of Newsette. She started a newsletter focused on female-centric content as a sophomore in college. Rather than follow the traditional path into publishing, she built Newsette into a $1 million company. Lucy and Daniella join us today to talk about how they broke barriers with innovative ideas, personal drive, and much more. Please welcome them to the stage together with Fortune Brainstorm Tech co-chair Terry Burns.
Lucy, Daniella, hello, how are you both doing today?
I'm excited to see you again after Aspen.
Yes, yeah. We were at Brainstorm Tech, Fortune Brainstorm Tech, just a couple months ago. I'm super excited to chat. I know that you guys know each other, are new friends. There's lots to dig into today, so let's just go ahead and jump in. The description for today's panel reads, being told they couldn't do something was all it took for these founders to find a different way of achieving their goals. So I want to jump straight into that. Can each of you tell us about a time you were told you couldn't do something and how you used that as motivation? Maybe Daniella, we can start with you.
Okay, yeah, I've been told many times that, so let me choose one story. I was told in college I was a bad student, so I'm actually labeled the dumb twin because I have an identical twin sister who looks exactly like me, except she was the best student in her class, and she went to UPenn, I went to BU, and while I was at BU, I started my first company, the Newsette, which now is valued at $200 million, and I'm really proud of that because we never took any VC funding, and my only other partner is my immigrant mother from Colombia, so I was able to make her a millionaire in the process. But while I was building that company, I not only had OCD, ADHD, depression, was like a bad student. I was basically a poster child for like someone not to believe in. So all of my professors did not believe in me. And I actually failed the entrepreneur project that we have.
The irony.
Yeah, and it was because, and I had a call with the dean the other day because now they want me to be their commencement speaker, which is so funny because I literally got a letter from the previous dean saying if you don't get your shit together, you're going to be kicked out one semester before graduation.
Wow.
So I barely passed that stage, and now I guess I'm gonna speak on it and in front of all the professors that hated me. But anyways, the crazy thing about the entrepreneurship project was we were in a group of 8 people where I don't know about you guys, I've never heard of anybody start a company with 8 people, and then it was peer reviewed, and so basically one person had to fail and I got to be that person. So it just shows you how, you know, school isn't everything. So I was a bad student, but I was told by everybody, not only the people in that group, by my teachers, by the dean who said that they were going to kick me out of college if I, you know, didn't jump through all of these hoops, because I didn't pass, you know, what they thought success looked like at the school. And now I'm lucky enough to be going back, not only to speak at the commencement, but also to help them put together a program that is more holistic and more realistic for entrepreneurs, because they also told me I'm the most successful entrepreneur that's graduated there in like 20 years, so.
Okay, what a comeback story that is.
I know.
We are looking forward to that commencement speech for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna like turn around and be like, I know what you did.
Lucy, what about you?
Yeah, I think I've always just been a really rebellious child, and my parents never really believed in me. Not because they're like bad parents, but because my little brother was just significantly smarter than me. Like he skipped 6 grades in math, was taking AP Calc BC in 6th grade, total genius. So it all kind of started when I wanted to take an electrical engineering course course in high school at Carnegie Mellon, summer classes, and my parents told me, you can't be an engineer because you are a woman. And that blew my mind because my mom actually got her graduate degree in electrical engineering. But her argument was that she was the only person in class. So I secretly switched to EE after they forced me to change out of it. And they found out like while we were at Carnegie Mellon and started screaming at me in front of the entire dome of students that I was gonna fail, kind of embarrassing. But I felt the need to prove them wrong, so I ended up doing really well in the course. And then the professor at CMU ended up writing me a recommendation letter, and I was just really lazy with college applications, so I knew I would get in because of that, and I did. And then the second time was when I dropped out of college. I got the Teal Fellowship, and yet again, they're like, hey, you're never gonna succeed. You really think you can run a company? And I was like, yeah, like I ran a bunch of online businesses when I was younger in like middle school, high school, elementary school, and I made a good amount of money from it. And they just were not happy. They viewed it as like a sign of disrespect that I was doing that. So they ended up not talking to me for like, I want to say good like 2 to 3 years. In between, I ended up getting a job at like Snap and Quora and getting paid extremely well for my age. So they started talking to me. And then when I decided to quit, to go start a company, I got into Y Combinator. I got VC funding. They again stopped talking to me, and they like pulled my cell phone, health insurance, etc. So I was like really alone. But it was this desire to prove them wrong, but also to be able to make them proud, because like even though they stopped talking to me, the entire time I realized that they immigrated from China and gave up everything they had known to give their kids a better future, and I wanted to like return that favor. And part of that was like proving them wrong and making myself uber successful. So I'm really happy to say that like now I can like provide for my family, and they're proud again and talking to me.
That's great. A lot of themes here. Oh yes, we can definitely clap for that. A lot of familial themes here, educational themes. There's kind of a through line with both of your stories, which I very much appreciate.
It's almost exactly
It's
the
actually
same.
almost like we had this
That's
entire
why we
big talk.
bonded.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is perfect.
Yeah, we were
Wow.
on the Marie Claire power trip, so we literally just met like 24 hours ago, and we were like, your parents didn't believe in you either? Yes,
They would say the
best
exact same words to
friends.
us, which is the crazy part.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that you guys did do a bit differently, Lucy, you have previously raised venture funding, and as you mentioned, Daniella, you did not raise venture funding for the Newsette, of which I am a subscriber. I'm really curious to know, why did you choose to not go the VC route, if you did, if that was an intentional decision, and what advice would you give to folks who maybe are trying to figure out what funding models might make the most sense for their business?
Yeah, I would love to say that I turned down every VC, and that's the reason why I didn't have VC funding, but it was because basically at like 22, when I moved to New York, it was about 3 years into my business. I got meetings, with incredible VCs. I had a meeting with one of the most notable VCs, like the guy, with his name on the building. And I ended up having a meeting, and he essentially the entire time I was talking, he was laughing. And I was like, what's so funny? And he goes, you remind me of my granddaughter. And I was like, oh, that's great. She must be so successful, whatever. And then his face just dropped, and he was like, no, she actually talks way too fast and is not successful. And I was like, I literally was like, am I like in a dream right now, or a nightmare? And I literally got up and was like, okay, thank you very much. Got in the elevator and literally said, fuck VCs. I'm just gonna build it my way. And I know a lot of people have had really great experiences with VCs. So that's the reason why I didn't raise, because no one would give me any money. And I decided I was spending too much time trying to get the money. So instead of, a few years ago when Newsette made $1 million, instead of raising that $1 million and convincing maybe 2 or 3 people, I had to convince thousands of people, because I got $1 million through advertising. And so it actually was a really great lesson, and it took longer. It's going to be 8 years in the Newsette in January, and we did 40 million last year with 8 figures of profit, which is profit is crazy, in the media world especially. And we grew an agency out of it during the pandemic. So that's really what catapulted our growth. So we were able to fund our growth with money, and I didn't even think about taking my own money out of the business, and paying myself until I was like, oh wait, there's a lot left. And now I'm very lucky that I get to invest in other female-founded companies and really, be able to empower people who were not empowered like myself. But I am a hypocrite because I have a new company called Wondermind, with Selena Gomez and Mandy Teefee, and we raised money at a $100 million valuation when it was just the three of us and an idea. Serena Williams, her venture fund, led the raise, and so I have now raised money.
Okay, so you've seen both sides of
yes.
how it can go.
So now I'm appreciative that I had time to do both, but truly, if I would have had the money, for the first venture, I probably would have spent it on things that not in a way that didn't make sense, but just like there were so many things that I had to do and I failed small, whereas if I had all that money, I would have failed big and it could have taken me out. And so because I had 100% control of my company, I was able to continue going even when things like shitty things happened, whatever. I don't think I have that luxury now with Wondermind.
Right.
So yeah, any advice I would really give is I was lucky enough to have 3 years in college where I didn't have to worry about getting myself food, having a place to live, because I was in college and my parents were, generous enough to pay for that. That's the ultimate gift they gave me. And I knew, okay, these are the only 3 years of my life, because I was a sophomore, that I am never going to, I don't have any responsibilities except for to be a good student and I guess party and make friends.
Yep.
Second part did not happen and I would love to say it's because of business, but I don't know. Maybe it was weird, but I took all of that time that I knew I didn't have to have a job, and I created a job for myself because I knew nobody was going to hire me.
And to be able to build that business and then again use that revenue to grow it. That's amazing.
But I was lucky. Again, I had 3 years where I didn't have a family to support. I didn't have to have a job.
So you were able to hyper focus in on what it was that you were building.
Yes.
Lucy, I want to hear a little bit more about your perspective. You have raised venture funding, and you're also currently working on passes right now. So I'm curious to hear about both. Your new company, what is it, and what's your sort of perspective on raising venture funding and how that can impact the future of your business?
Yep, so my thing is that if you're a founder and you're able to build a MVP, you should do that. And if you can even get traction before the MVP, or before you raise funding, that's phenomenal, because I think it's possible to raise funding, but you're talking about very different valuations, like a $3 million valuation if you don't have an MVP versus like a $50 million valuation if you do have an MVP.
Or a $100 million valuation.
Or a $100 million valuation.
We had nothing, so.
Yeah, I'd be a little scared to raise at a $100 million valuation.
I'm a really good salesperson.
Yes, yeah. I am a hypocrite because I ended up raising VC funding for my second venture, even though I have told pretty much every single founder not to do so until they have a little bit of traction. My excuse is that I got a very good valuation. I ended up raising at a $50 million valuation with no deck, no product, and I didn't take a meeting. So it all kind of happened in 48 hours. And then my new company, I'm working on the Web3 creator economy. Think of like Web3, Patreon, Fanhouse, OnlyFans, but like very focused on non-adult content. And I'm like very excited to help creators really be able to own their fans, because there's such a problem with creators essentially like losing full control if they accidentally have copyright music playing in the background, they accidentally say a swear word, etc. And then suddenly they lose their account, they lose all their income potential, and that's like their whole life being right now. And I have a lot of friends going through this where they've either lost their social media platforms or they're like one warning away from getting banned. And it constantly stresses them out every single day. I also just think overall platforms take way too much. A lot of my friends are Twitch streamers, and now they've gone from like a 10-20% rev share to 50%, and they're not happy about it. And then just I think there's like long-term income earning potential with royalty fees, et cetera. Like one thing I like to say is like art is a really good example where art isn't worth that much until they die, and then when they die, their families don't get the benefits of their artwork increasing in value, whereas now like they get the percentage to their like trust funds or whatever.
While they're alive. Great.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment just to see if there are any questions in the audience. We can take this conversation lots of places, but just wanted to see any questions. Looks like we have one question way in the back there, if you want to wait just a second to get a microphone.
Hey, I'm Danielle. Great panel, girls. This was awesome. And the question I have for you is, given the experiences you've had personally and how that's greatly impacted the way you see your businesses, how has that impacted the way you work with other people at your company, specifically around core values?
Yeah, so one thing I'm doing differently this time around is I think that in our first company, there was definitely, like, we overworked people significantly, and I'm not saying I'm not like overworking people per se, but definitely just being a little more empathetic and making the work environment more fun. I think it's naturally more fun because of, instead of enterprise sales now, we get to work with creators, which my company loves. Like, I'll invite creators over to the office and we'll be jamming and working while having conversations on the side, which is actually product feedback. So it's a fun little loop. And then something I've learned also is just, like, we've talked about this, but I'm very, very bad at building a remote culture. I haven't really figured it out yet. I think this could be because of my first company. It was all in person and we were able to communicate efficiently, and I was remote for maybe the last like 1 to 2 months, and I'm forcing everyone to move back in person because I do think that, like, within a small company, it's incredibly important to have that fast communication loop. And I like, props to people who figure it out on like how to have that communication loop without miscommunication remote, but I'll admit, as a founder, I've not figured it out.
Sure. Danielle?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for asking, and you have a great name, Danielle. I'm Daniella.
Also an identical twin, if I knew might say. We were chatting about this yesterday at dinner.
She is?
Yeah.
Oh, I have
They're
an
also both badasses.
Oh my gosh.
Also.
That's, well, if your identical twin's name is Alex, then that's ultra weird, because that's mine. But anyways, that's my twin, not yours. So when I started off, I like to say that there were 3 people working at my company, me, myself, and I. And we all just did everything from the fucking chief janitor officer to the CEO to the salesperson, because I didn't have the luxury of hiring people. And that was actually a really good thing because I had never had a job before. So how did I know how to manage anyone? I didn't. And so when I finally started making revenue, when we finally launched revenue, I made $25,000 the very first month. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm gonna start hiring, like, paid interns and then assistant, whatever. And I slowly learned that because of my age, I was 22 at the time, I would hire people that were, 10 years older than me and not be respected. And because I was almost overly nice and almost like so grateful that they wanted to work with me even though I was paying them and not paying myself. And so I really have evolved as a leader as the Newsette has grown, and now it's like 50 people, and by the end of the year we're going to have over 100 people between the 2 organizations. What has been very, eye-opening is that I always felt bad with my team members to ever have anyone work after like 6 p.m. just because I just thought, if you have a good work-life balance, I've never had anybody work during a weekend. I mean, maybe some people have like by themselves, but I like get mad at them, and that's very weird because, as you said, like in most high growing companies or fast growing companies, like it's like 24/7. I just haven't really had that working style, and I think that it's paid off in dividends because people have their weekends, they have time after work to do their thing, and so they come refreshed and they like just really own the day and really just show up as their best selves. I also have a mental health company now, so I don't think I could get away with working people to the bone, and we have mental health days, etc. But I think it's more about it's more about I've evolved as a leader, knowing that I can say I did something wrong, or I was wrong in a meeting, or maybe this morning I was like with my COO and my co-CEO for Wondermind. I was just really, really stressed out, and I like took it out on them, and I immediately apologized after. And so I think it's being mature enough to take accountability when you're wrong. I mean, I just said so much stuff. I have ADHD.
Now, bouncing off of that, though, I think that I was a really bad micromanager before, and now I delegate more, and I trust people a lot more. I trust off the bat, and that also makes them happier and puts them in the best place to do their best work.
Empowers teams to do
Yep.
the best work that they can.
Yep.
Daniella, Lucy, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys taking the time today. I wish we could keep chatting. We are at time now, but super excited to see what you both continue to do.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.